Welcome back to Anderson's Smoke Show. Today, we're gonna be focusing on something that you could do during the week, and this is beef skirt steak. But we're gonna be smoking this more along the lines of a brisket. I will tell you that this is way more expensive when it comes to cost per pound. This is like $12.50 a pound in comparison to about $3.50 a pound with brisket. Now this, in and of itself, because it's so thin, is gonna take way less time than a brisket, and it's just gonna give you something different. If you're looking for something different to cook on your smoker or your grill this summer, this is it. This is one of those easy ones. You should have this done in a matter of 3 to 4 hours. Now today, with this skirt steak, we're keeping it extremely simple. We've got 2 rubs. We got the Lone Star Grillz pellet grill running at 225 degrees. Now let me show you exactly what we're gonna do. Now I mentioned this is extremely simple. I have 2 different rubs. This is a Traeger anything rub. It's as simple as salt, pepper, garlic. I was just looking for something that had like a medium coarseness when it came to the salt and the pepper. And this is the Grillaholics Brazilian Steakhouse rub. This one is pretty fine, kind of reminds me of that like carne asada or literally Brazilian steakhouse. It's kind of heavy in the paprika and some of the other spices, but for me, it didn't have the coarseness that I was looking for with the salt. So I'm gonna start off with a layer of the anything rub, salt, pepper, garlic, and we're just going to put this straight on to this skirt steak. No binders, no special pat drying, nothing. Just as simple as salt, pepper, garlic. We'll just give it a nice little pat in. Now the one thing, you know, when we season a brisket, we're typically pretty generous with the salt and the pepper and the garlic, or the seasoning in general, but you have to understand that that could be upwards of a 17-pound piece of meat. This is thin, and you wanna make sure that you don't over season. So, you know, take it easy on the salt, for sure. We're gonna hit it with the Brazilian Steakhouse rub here. This is gonna add some nice color and some additional flavors and spices that you're not getting in that salt, pepper, garlic. And we're just gonna go in like that. We're gonna pat that right in, flip them over, just like so. We're gonna hit them again. If this wasn't simple enough, I'm gonna take you over to the smoker and show you how easy it is to smoke these skirt steaks. Now skirt steak, it's as simple as 200 to 225 degrees. I'm gonna be running this at 225 today. We're gonna go top rack on the Lone Star Grillz pellet grill. Look at all that good smoke. One thing that I think is very important to note, this applies to a lot of meat, including ribs. Look how long I can make this skirt steak. If you want this to cook like a thicker piece of meat, you can scrunch the meat together like an accordion. Scrunch it together. Don't bunch it up to where it's like all like bubbled up or bunched up like this, but just push it together so that the meat is more compact. It's gonna cook like a thicker piece of meat. What you have to do is when you get it onto the grate like you see here, you gotta kind of scrunch it together. And it's a little harder to do on here than it is on the cutting board, but you can do it. I'm gonna do that here and get this one on in the back. We're gonna get that one nice and thick. And pretty much that simple. In the smoker, 225 degrees, we want this to start cooking. And we're not gonna do anything until that rub is intact to the point where I can take my finger or my fingernail and scrape at the surface and the seasoning stay intact. That's when we will be moving on to the next step, which is also a very simple step. So let me get the grill closed. Like I said, when that rub is nice and intact, that's when we are moving on to the next step. I will see you then. All right, we're back out here and we're an hour and 20 minutes or so into the cook. I'm monitoring the temperature of this skirt steak. We're sitting at about 150 degrees. Let's take a look at it here. You can see fat is starting to render down. We've got some juices pooling up. And when I touch that rub is intact on the surface of this skirt steak. What does that mean? That means it is time for the next step. So what I have, some melted down, salt-free or unsalted Irish butter, and I have some garlic in here as well. And we're gonna be brushing this on to keep the surface moist and juicy for the rest of the cook. So do not feel or hesitate to use plenty of butter here. So I'm gonna give this a nice little stir, and I've got my silicone brush here, and I'm just going to baste this butter onto the surface of this skirt steak. Now let's do this to the one up front here. And as this continues to cook, the butter's gonna help keep it moist. And this fat inside is also starting to render. We can see that. All right. Get that push back in. Get this lid closed. We're gonna check on this about every 20 or so minutes just to make sure that the surface remains moist. We'll add more butter and garlic if necessary. We're also gonna keep monitoring that temperature. Once we get to a certain point where color and bark is about as far as we can get it, we're gonna throw it in a foil pan with just a tad bit of butter so that we can keep the moisture going while we finish up the cook. But for now, about every 20 minutes or so, we're gonna check, we're gonna baste if necessary. We're sitting at about 1 hour and 40 minutes. We put the butter on about 20 minutes ago, and you can see we're continuing to build some great color. Surface is still nice and moist. Not gonna really have to do much for now. I'm gonna keep an eye on the temperature. We're about 155 degrees internal. We're gonna run this a little bit further. I will show you what you should be looking for those next steps in just a little bit. All right, we are approaching 3 hours on this cook. We're getting pretty close to the next steps here, but I do want to give it a little bit more butter on the surface. So, got my silicone brush, got my butter here. We're just gonna make sure that we baste this nice with this butter. Yeah, well, I tell you what, this smells incredible. I don't know about you, those look great. We've reached 175 degrees internal on these skirt steaks. You can tell it's starting to get dark here. It's kind of a late dinner for us today. But we need to get these bumped up in temperature. We need to get about 200 to 205, somewhere in there, to get that kind of real super tender, almost brisket-like consistency. So I've got a foil pan here. I've grabbed a little bit of the butter and I've just put it down in the bottom so that the pan wasn't dry. And I'm gonna pick up this skirt steak and I'm gonna get it down into this pan. Get the thermometer placed just like so. And I'm gonna bump the temperature up to about 265 degrees. And I'm gonna put some foil loosely over the top. I'm not gonna put it super tight to where it starts braising inside the foil pan, but I want it enough to where it's gonna hold a little bit more of the heat and a little bit more of the moisture inside there. So let me get this wrapped up. And when I say loosely, I'm gonna leave one of the ends where the thermometer is. I'm gonna leave that where I'm not actually folding it over underneath. And I'm gonna get this back into the smoker. I'm watching that temperature. We're gonna be looking for that butter-like softness or that consistency. We're gonna see that over 200 degrees. I've got the probe in there. I'm monitoring it literally from the couch while we watch the latest episode of Dexter. I will be back with you guys once it is time to pull this out. My probes are telling me we're about 201 degrees. I'm gonna hop in here, peel this foil back that was just loosely placed on top. And I've got my ThermaPen 1 here. Realistically, I'm looking for feel, so this probe is perfect for that. And yeah, it is nice and buttery soft. Wow, super tender. I'm gonna pull this out. I'm gonna burp this. I'm gonna let the steam out of the pan to make sure that it's not gonna keep cooking, but we want this to rest. We're gonna let it rest. We will see you in about a half hour. We let the skirt steak rest for about 30 minutes in that pan with the foil cracked open, just to let the steam and let the moisture out. I can tell you from just pulling this out, it is so tender. I actually lost a piece of the end right there. Now, with skirt steak or any cut of meat, it's always good to understand which way the grain runs. And with skirt steak, it's a very kind of stringy meat. To describe it well, you can really see which way the grain is going. So what I would suggest is that you cut this into thirds or fourths, something like this. Like that. Depends on what you're using it for. If you need smaller pieces, then I guess you can go smaller. But then spin that 90 degrees and get in there and get yourself some nice slices. Now I can tell you just from feeling this, this is super tender. I'm gonna do the same over here. Let's see. It's going about like that. Get in here, cut some slices of this. You can really see the smoke penetration. Total cook was about 4 hours with rest. Super excited to try this. First time I've done it like a brisket or brisket style. Super tender, super juicy. You can see that smoke penetration. You can see I can pretty much just pull that apart. I can do that with just about every piece on that board. Now, regardless of what I show you on camera, it's about how it tastes. So might as well go ahead and dive on in, and I'm gonna give this a try. And I'm gonna grab a piece here. It reminds me a lot of a brisket, but it's got a little, I'm trying to think what is actually different. The texture itself is a little different, though it's very tender. The tissue, the connective tissue in this skirt steak is different, so texture is a little bit different. It's super smoky from being in that smoke bath for like 3 hours or so. It's super tender. You can see I can just pull that apart. Now, the only thing that I would critique, if I were going to say anything negative about today's cook, I could have went with a more coarse ground salt and pepper. Looking at the bark here, it doesn't have quite the same finish as a brisket. The flavor is incredible. The 2 rubs that I use at Brazilian Steakhouse and that all-purpose rub by Traeger, seasoned perfectly. It is delicious. If you're looking for a brisket style bark, that kind of Texas crunch bark, you're gonna wanna go with something a little bit more coarse. But to be honest with you, the flavor is on point for what I'll be doing with this. This meat is great for whatever. You can use it for wraps, you can use it for tacos, you can eat it just like this with a side of vegetables. You could use it in stir fry, whatever the hell you wanna do with it, because it's delicious. So if you're looking for more delicious backyard barbecue, and especially if you're looking for something that's not going to take all night and day. Granted, you'll see I started this video in the sunlight and now we're out in the dark. It's because I started it a little late in the day. It's about 9 o'clock at night now. 4 hours top to bottom, not too bad, especially if you could get an early start to a weeknight meal. But I tell you what, this is great. And if you're looking for more great barbecue, then I suggest you subscribe to the channel and check out this video right here.